This is the Town of Washington Historical Society meeting held on Thursday, April 19th in the year 2001 at the Lyle Memorial Federated Church in Millbrook. And our guest speaker tonight is Helen, Kading, Russel, Dolen, and she will tell us about the Washington Grange, its founding, and how it ended. Grange here in Millbrook.
Very lucky in this community to use you as a resource. I've said this many times, and I believe it, that Millbrook as a community has a lot to offer, and every community reflects the people who live in it. And individually, we've got stories to tell. Collectively, we've got an audience to listen. So tonight, we're going to continue with that tradition. And we've got a very special presentation that has to do with the Grange. Helen is going to be talking about her involvement with the Grange. But there's a few bit of tidbits I want to share. I'm sure she'll tell you too. But I think this is wonderful. And that is that Helen joined the Grange in 1951. So guess what? This is her 50th anniversary in the Grange. And what better way to celebrate than to share the stories. So with that, Helen, thank you.
Good evening. Oh, I'm glad my son is here. I just got That is my teacher. I'm going to put my part out in two parts. The first part is the history of the Grange. The second part is what the Grange means. And the third part is what Washington Grange was. The Grange is a nationwide rural fraternity. It was organized for farmers in 1867 in Washington, D.C. That makes it 134 years for the organization itself. The founders of the Grange was this man here, Oliver Kelly, and 6 of his friends. They were members of the Masonic Order and also were employed by the Department of Agriculture. They saw firsthand the poverty and the isolated life of the farmers, especially the ones in the South. They worked to lay the foundation and the details for a secret fraternal organization to unite and benefit the poor farmers. The word Grange comes from the Latin word meaning grain. This is our Grange emblem. As you can see, it has 7 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It representing the 7 founders, 7 guys, and the 7 degrees of our membership. The first 4 degrees are conferred by the subordinate or local Grange. The 5th by the Pomona or the county Grange. The 6th by the state Grange. And the 7th by the national Grange. The P of H is the official name, husbandry, patrons of husbandry, which is the official name of the Grange. This grain of wheat reminds us, signifies that the importance of agriculture to us. The Grange is the oldest farm organization in the country. When it was founded, it was composed of only farmers from all over the country. It also was the first fraternal organization to admit women into membership with equal rights. The Grange growth came about when the farmers found an opportunity to get relief from the injustice under which they were suffering. Also, many benefits were made available to people, to the farmers, if they were Grange members. First of all, they could buy insurance as well as stock into a Grange insurance company. Another drawing card was they could join co-ops, where a Granger could purchase necessary supplies that we could use at a discount, eliminating the middleman. In fact, some of the co-ops even had Grangers act as their business agent and paid them a small commission to get all this business for them. In June of 1920, the New York State Grange, the Dairymen's League, and the State Farm Bureau combined and organized the GLF Exchange, which at one time was the largest purchasing organization in the world. Anybody know what the GLF stood for?
Grange Federation.
Grange League Federation. That's right. In 1964, the Grange League Federation Exchange and the Eastern States Farm Exchange merged. The new co-op name was what? Ag, that we know as today. Does any of you remember where the Agway Beef Store was in Nobel? It was located right on the Village Green.
When the train tracks.
The Village Green is today. This was the railroad station, and right over here was the Agway Beef Station. And it was run by A.E. Stacy, my king said. And after it was there, it moved on to Washington Avenue, which was in the back of Village, where Village is today. Were any of you members of the GLF? Any of you members of the GLF? Another thing that brought the farmers into the Grange was that they found a place where they could take their families and socialize. They even could get a meal for a couple of dishes to pass. We call it potluck suppers. Many of the suppers were held before the meetings to entice the members to come. In fact, that is still being done today. In later years, the Blue Cross and Blue Shield group health insurance was made available to Grangers. That was a very good drawing card for the Grangers here in Russel and join Washington Grange. The Grange continued to grow in membership until 1950. By 1952, it had hit its peak with a nationwide membership of 850,000 members across the country. Then it started to go down. By 1979, the national membership had dropped to 430,000. Today, the Grange, like many other organizations, is battling the loss of membership due to the change of our lifestyle today. The cancellation of some of the membership benefits, which once was a very important drawing card to join the Grange. And also, young people of today, young couples, are not interested in joining fraternal organizations. Today, our national Grange has a membership of 300,000 in 37 states. In New York State, we have 323 Granges with a membership of 12,000. And here in little old Dolen County, we have 18 Granges with a membership of 500. I just forget to mention that back in 1952, the membership here in Dolen County was 26 Granges with a membership of 5,725 members. In Garrison, we have 500 members here in Dolen County now. In 1938, our local Grange, Washington Grange, had a membership of 300, with an average of 100 or more attending each of their meetings, which was held on the first and third Tuesday of the month. This is a picture of our national Grange. It is located in Washington, D.C., 2 blocks from the White House. In 1960, President Eisenhower agreed to speak at the dedication ceremony. I was a good friend of the Grange master. And being his friend, he asked the master to draw him up a piece that he could give at the dedication. And as he sat there at the ceremony, just before the president was introduced, Eisenhower reached into his pocket to get his speech. And as he reached, all of a sudden he turned to his friend Benson and said, "I left my speech at home. What the blank should I do?" And Benson was perplexed. He didn't know what to say, but he turned to him and said, "I don't care what you do, but get up there and dedicate this building for Russel." The president gave his statement, and even though he didn't have any notes, or that the building was appropriately dedicated that day. This is the state room located in Portland, New York. It had a 20-year mortgage, but for the help of all the Granges in New York State, that 20-year mortgage was paid off in 13 years. Dutchess County had a big part in paying off that mortgage. We had the walk around, as you can see the pictures I have over there, and all the things that we made to raise money. In 1983, they announced that Dutchess County had donated $40,000 to the building fund of the New York State Grange. And we were the largest donation of any county in New York State. We also had a few notable strangers here in Dutchess County. Franklin D. Roosevelt joined Chapel Corners Grange in 1914. Elmer joined in 1931. This is a picture, a 1939 picture of Dolen Roosevelt when he went to Chapel Corners Grange and received his Silver Star certificate for 25 years of membership into the Grange. He was also a member of the State Grange, New York State Grange, and the National Grange. Whenever he had a chance, he would go to the meetings at the Chapel Corners Grange. In fact, when Elmer Roosevelt used to write her little column saying, "My Day" by Elmer Roosevelt, I remember reading it. She did say, in one day, that they had gone to the meeting at their Grange meeting at the Chapel Corners, and Franklin was so happy to talk to some of his friends at the Grange. Roosevelt was he liked Dutchess County, and he liked to refer to the place in Hyde Park as his farm. He didn't like when all these news people said there's an estate in Dutchess County. He wanted them to call it his farm in Dutchess County. Another notable we had was Governor Thomas E. Dewey, who joined Bowling Green in 1946. Also, locally, we had Hamilton Fish Jr., who joined Washington Grange in 1964. But he later transferred to Oak Grove Grange in Washington Court. I remember him coming to a few meetings. We also came to a few of our dinners at these concerts. But I think mostly he joined the Grange for political reasons. What is the Grange? I'm only going to tell you briefly what the Grange is. I have some flyers here that you can take after the meeting that I got from the State Grange. We'll tell you a little more in detail what the Grange is. The Grange is a fraternal organization. It offers membership to men and women 14 years and older. It is no more just the farmers organization, no more. Anybody that's 14 or older can join the Grange. And also some Granges have a junior Grange, which is open to the youth between the ages of 5 and 14. It supports legislative activities. The Grange was, and still is, a very active and legislative district, be it local, county, state, or national. Today, a lot of the things we take for granted came from from the Grange treasurer. For example, our RSP mail delivery by the post office to rural areas is from the Grange treasurer. Also, the inclusion of the farmer into our Social Security system. And locally, the Grange supported in 1923 the construction of the Mid-Hudson Bridge in the Pacific. There are a lot of issues that the Grange went between then and now, but I'll list you the three that are right now for the paper covering. Currently, nationwide, they support the equitable reform of Medicare. In the United States, they support the inclusion of New York in the Northeast Dairy Compact. And locally, they are opposed to the closure of Hollow Road where it crosses the Tonic Parkway. Community service. Community service is the heart and soul of each local Grange. It fills the needs of its members as well as its community. For example, in 1987, nationwide, Grange made and donated 33,000 toys for the McDonald College and the hospitals across the country. Locally, donated to the local food pantries, and helps families in need, donates medicines and drugs to the Children's Home in Poughkeepsie and to our home here, the Cardinal Hayes home here in Wood. It also, we make laterals for the residents of Ripping Home and for the veterans of Castle Point. It provides personal development. That means that as a Grange, you can join any of our contests, be it photography, sewing, baking, or talent. Also, it has educational scholarships. The Grange has scholarships at all levels. It also provides fellowship and recreation. And the last one is an opportunity to meet a lot of the nice people, like me. My question was, will the other Grangers here this evening raise their hands? Good. I'm glad you're all here. Okay, that's the end of that. Now I'm going to tell you about Washington Grange. Washington Grange number was 878, which means it was the 878th chapter, a charter, Grange that got its charter in the United States. In September of 1899, a group of farm men and women got together to plan and organize the Grange. A month later, October 31st, 1899, they received its charter with 20 members. There was 14 men, 5 women, and 1 minor female, which was the child of one of the women. Its first master, or president, was Theodore Lawrence, who served until 1904, when he moved to Rhinebeck. Its last master was Helen Russel Dolen, who served from 1977 to 81, when Washington Grange disbanded and joined Cousin Grange. During the 50s and 60s, Washington Grange had a junior Grange, but it folded up for lack of members. Martina Gray was a junior leader, was one of the junior leaders during that time. The early meetings of Washington Grange was held in the Women's Christian Temperance Union Hall, located at the P.H. Keeper Building at the corner of Franklin and Church Street. Later it met at the YMCA, also known as the Community Center Building on Mary Avenue. On August 1st, 1920, they purchased from James Redding the old Episcopal Church Building for $4,000. That was located on the corner of Mary and Church. Today, it's the Bank of Millwood parking lot. This is the building. This is the old Grange 1939 picture of it. This is a picture of 1967 when Wilkie Construction tore it down. This was our meeting hall, it was in here. This was our dining room, and back here they were building here. Same here with the kitchen. David, this is a picture of David Pastor, who at 1939 was the master. But he's many times afterward became master. This is the inside of the meeting hall. As you can see, we had a stage where the members were all seated around the outside. The master sat right here, and the master is like the president. The overseer is back here, and that is like a vice president. Then we had a secretary and a treasurer that sat over here. Over here, this was the chaplain. Now the lecturer was over on this side, and the lecturer is an officer that puts on short programs at each meeting. Then we had a ritual officer, which is a steward that you can't see in the map, back here. And then we had the assistant steward and the lady assistant steward. And they take part in, seeing that it's a ritual fraternity, they take part in the opening and closing of a meeting. The gatekeeper was the guy that stood outside the main entrance so that nobody could come in. Also in the front of the stage was Pomona, Ceres, and Flora. They are known as the three graces, and are only used for the Greek word. As you can, this particular picture is a picture of the meeting room set up, up here with all flowers, because they were putting on a memorial service for a member that had died, and her name was Florence Barney. With their own money, with their own building now, the gated members consented to raise money. One to pay for the debt of the building, and another to pay for the repairs, which was $5,000. Their fundraising projects were showing of movies, which they could because they had the stage. And also they put on plays, which you can see Jimmy had a picture there where they did put on a play. These are all well attended and supported by the local people. On April 18, 1916, the Ladies Club was organized with 40 ladies. The Ladies Club was, and still is, the backbone of Grange. Not only did they raise money for great projects, but they also prepared articles of sewing for the local hospitals and for the armed forces during both wars. In one news item I read, the Ladies Club held an all-day meeting at Mrs. Robert Phipps's home and spent the whole day sewing and planning for future projects and meetings. For many years, the Grange members served fortune suppers. That was well attended. You went to Gulf and then you went to Grange and had your suppers. This was well attended by the public. They also served dinner for Housing Lot or Lease and Star. This is a picture in 1953 that I took. They also served the annual dinner for the member fire company. They served the father and son dinners for the Boy Scouts, the mother and daughter dinners for the Girl Scouts. And also they served farm organizations here in that. They also helped Housing Lodge serve their community breakfast, which is always held the Sunday after Easter. Martina will tell you about the community breakfast.
Mr. Holbrook, the minister of the Trinitarian Church, is one that started on Sunday breakfast. And we always held them in Normal High School. Our auditorium there was set up with and we'll clear out into the foyer. The first Masonic breakfast I can remember was that there were 900 showed up that morning. And now it's hard to say maybe 50 because there's that many now. And the Eastern Star would get together the day before our breakfast on a Sunday morning and have to mark all the dishes, silverware, and cups and saucers and salt and peppers and sugar and creamers, and have them all up at the area church here from our Eastern Star Hall, ready to go and business with Sunday morning breakfast. And I don't know, I've never had the opportunity to get the quantity of food that we had, but we had sausage, potatoes, start out with oatmeal, and our tables would all be set with prunes. I hear a lot of people now, prunes. They finally did away with that, or then it just had orange juice and like that. But many of the people that worked on that Masonic breakfast didn't know what a really sweet was until everything was all over there after the morning getting cooked and ready for the big affair. And Mr. Bird, I really probably remember he sort of took care of the coffee. And Mrs. Briggs worked all the time in the kitchen, and so filled the place. And we all had a bag that we fixed our coffee in. And Phil took a long time, and took the batch, put it in a grill drop, where she had some moth eggs. Well, I would say that Sunday morning was kind of rough around here for a while. But it was used, and it's not quite heavy in moth eggs, it's a coffee. But they would take and line us up against the wall. There would be Mrs. Kurtz, she would assign the Eastern Star members to a table, and then each table would have the leader that would be in charge of getting the oatmeal and that out. There would be 3 or 4 workers to each table, and they would line up ahead of them. And so the Masons would come in from their services here at the Federated Church. They would all take their seats, and then the girls would have to go ahead and go into the kitchen and line up with, we had 3 platters of sausage and 3 bowls of oatmeal. And the tables, as I said, was set with prunes, so don't worry about that. Oh, and then to begin with, we had to cut the roll with some butter then and have them on the table. And so then we go out, and the 2 girls go in, and then get 2 dishes and take out, put on the table, 2 more would go in. And that's the way that they would alternate until everyone was taken care of. And then the table was, you're sure that it was all taken care of, and you would go back for refills. And sometimes it was kind of rough to go around those corners. You just want to go, okay, I didn't hit somebody yet. But we were just so busy we were going back and forth and flying around here. But we always had a wonderful time, and so we look forward to it a lot every year, and I really miss it. The car company does it now, and it's, I still wish that we could do and work with them on that. There's other things that we could do, and then Helen was talking about how we really comfort real blankets. Family and different places. Aunt Grace, those Moses Bruce, Aunt Grace, she and I made this. And I think that you had a lot of pictures and stuff. And you always look forward to seeing who's going to be there every year and your friends and that and how they work, and that's the way it goes. But it was really, really great. But I think that's gone downhill, same as Grange, same as everything else. And for Grange now, 60-year member of that, and same as Dolen, 60-year member, and I enjoyed both. In fact, I always told Bruce Tompkins, Grange is my life, and I would keep going if I had to go in a wheelchair. Well, I haven't come to it yet, but I don't know. Okay.
I did want to add that the cooking for that community breakfast started at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you were matron of the Eastern Star, you were appointed normally. You had to be at that 2 o'clock thing. What happened to be that I was like this, I got out of it.
Helen, remember, it usually was the Sunday after Easter, and that's usually the time when you spend the clock ahead, so we lost another hour. Getting up at 3 or 2 in the morning.
One year we had enough food for 800, and it snowed, and it was slipping. I think we had 200 or 250, and we had food left over. We took it wherever we could take it. They had the menu usually was, like I say, the prunes and then the scalloped potatoes. The scalloped potatoes, if you were an Eastern Star member or a regular, you had to take a whole bag of it, cook it up, cut them up in little pieces.
Was that time it snowed, was that before 1950? Because I remember my father.
Because I say, I was in high school when they asked me to come serve at the thing. I remember that.
Well, I remember.
And they paid me 50 cents if I came on Saturday and helped them set up. And 50 cents if I served them.
One of those breakfasts, my father came home with 5 gallons of coffee left over. I don't remember what we did with that.
I think in my collection of slides, I still got the pictures of the 200 people that did come. That's left over.
Helen, I'm Charlie's sister, and I served on those Masonic breakfasts. Being that I was a young girl and like 75 pounds wet at the time, they had me work on the stage, the tables on the stage, on the breakfast. Because I was small, I could go through the lines of tables and chairs. I wasn't the only one there, but I always was told to work on the stage, serving the
I have
breakfast.
some pictures there. Apparently John took those pictures. A picture of my first husband when he was master in 1960 of the Austin House. Other interesting items that I found about the Grange was, in 1903, they hired a janitor for $15 a week. And they bought coal for $6.25 a ton. In 1912, they exhibited at the Dutchess County Fair in Washington Howard with their products and their animals. This is now the New York State Cooper's area. In 1917, the Grange set up a special gardening committee. They distributed seed to the children who made 56 gardens. The following year, they had 72 entries. The money that they had for prizes was $15. And this project lasted for 4 years. In 1914, they served a Thanksgiving dinner to their members. The cost of a 67 pound of turkey was $20. Another interesting fact I found was their secretary book, minutes. The shortest minutes consisted of 4 words. J. Ham, which was the master's name, Good Eats, and then it was signed by the secretary's last name. The longest minutes were pasted in. That was in 1937, when he gave a surprise 50th wedding anniversary party for A.S. Carter, who was a little man here, and his wife Julia. 260 people attended the affair. In 1927, the Grangers had raised enough money to pay off their debt and held a mortgage burning ceremony. During World War II, the Grange Hall was used for community affairs and also as a canteen center headed by Grace Briggs. One of the things the canteen volunteers did was prepare food and bring it over to the Trinity Pauline Hospital, which was set up as a temporary hospital for the servicemen. This project involved the Grange lady as well as the other women in the local community. The Grange helped watch the town of Washington finance its first ambulance. Right here. It wasn't until 1946 that Washington Grange finally got a woman master, and she was Mrs. Robert Hist, and these were the living men that were officers during 1946. They didn't have too many members, change in master once you were in there. This little Mr. Cotton served 9 consecutive years as master. Then he served another 2, so he has a total of 11 years as master. In 1955, the women made jam and jelly for the residents of the county home, which is now known as the county infirmary. Another interesting fact was that the well-to-do residents in Millbrook, we used to call them the Hilltoppers, were members of the Grange and very willing to help. In 1949, when the Grange celebrated the 50th anniversary, Mrs. Oakley Farm donated flowers in memory of Oakley, a member of 40 years. Also, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, Mr. and Mrs. H.P. Blake, who was the parents of Kurt, Mr. and Mrs. Carl Stavakis, who was the owner of the middle floor. They all donated flowers for the table decorations and for the meeting. Also in 1946, Mrs. Donaldson, Mrs. Blake, Mrs. Pomeroy, Mrs. Grant, and Mrs. Baker. They put on a program for the Grange entitled The Flowers I Am Growing This Year. Other members of the Grange were Ken Levitt, Bev Davison, Teresa McLean. She stayed on our books until she died. But in fact, when we went to vote it out, they said, she's still around. I said, I don't know. She was on our book. Also, Reverend Ross Spear, who was the rector of the Grace Church, and also our good old George T. Will Senior. In 1973, Louise Tompkins was trying to write a history of the Grange. She wrote Grace Briggs telling her that the note said the Grace had given her ended in 1946. But Louise did mention that the Grange held picnics at the Merit School, where between 3,000 and 4,000 people attended. I believe this probably was one of the Dutchess County Grange picnics. Jean has found a little more information on that.
Jean Armstrong copied about 4 pages from the round table that Louise Tompkins did for Helen a few years ago. I'm just going to read a couple of things. One of them certainly caught my eye because my grandfather had taken photographs around 1900 and had a couple who didn't know where they were. There was a little platform, a group of people around, and obviously some big affair. So when I read this, I thought, maybe that's Merritt's Grove. Does anyone here know where Merritt's Grove is?
Isn't that like what the American Legion Hall is? Because I was in the picture where we have, it looks like the surroundings. There's no up here. It's just kind of neat.
Okay. I was guessing that History of Road and L Drive at that time did not have any houses. But this is what it said, 1900, 2,000 people gathered at Merritt's Grove, Greenwood, this week for the Great Grange picnic. All morning and part of the afternoon, teams arrived bringing wagon loads of grain from all over the county. The guest was state senator. They had rollicking tunes played by Schofield's orchestra. And after the first round dance, introduced the assistant editors of the Country Journal, even speaking. After the speeches were over, many of the Grangers hitched up their teams and set out to see the sights of Russel. Now that must have been a lot of people. The line of wagons along Franklin Avenue made that thoroughfare look like Main Street Poughkeepsie, only more stylish and attractive. That was 1900. Well, the flyer up there that Kevin D. Martini let me copy is called Henry's Wedding. And that, I discovered, took place in 1933 from my great aunt's diary. She mentioned something about my uncle using her dress tonight and Charles living room and dressed around her. And it turns out that in this Henry's Wedding, they had quite a few men playing women's parts, dancing and singing. And amongst them were my great uncle, E.A. Birch, who was called Broadway Butterfly. Was a New York Bowery girl. Did you know that? Stephen Donahue is Miss Hoopskirt. Anyway, it's kind of hard to read, but there were quite a number of, obviously, local people. 125 altogether. The course was made up of school, high school kids. So that was quite an affair. The Grange sponsored. And then just briefly, this caught my eye because I was thinking this is a farmers' organization, but they have women. How did they keep the attention of the women and then the town people? Well, they just switched it a little bit. February, what's the best and cheapest feed for the production of milk? And the next meeting, picture show the Audubon Society, and then the farmer's garden. And then they switched to homemaking. And I noticed my grandmother's name there was one of the people who put that on. Patriotic night. Experiments without alcohol. Musical evening in charge of the director. Managers at the silo. And then the next night in the evening with the lady assistant steward. Country life versus city life. So they did try to switch it around. There's two more. January 23, 1930 in the Grange Hall. The first power farming day ever held in Millwood occurred on Thursday at the Grange Hall. It was sponsored by Raymond Briggs and the International Harvesters Company. Farmers from all parts of Dutchess County gathered at the Grange Hall to learn about the advantages of using tractors, harvesters, and other farm machines powered by gasoline engines instead of horses. Now the next meeting was February 4th. 50 members present. The lectures hour was given over to the following debate. Which is more beneficial to a farm, a tractor or a horse? Stephen Robinson, Andrew Nate were for the tractor. W.H. Davis and John Rowe were for the horse. The judges were W.H. Andrews, William Sutton, and Gene Harrison. The horse won.
This is a map of Hist County. And this is one of these were a great village, which is affiliated namely from Dolen. There is Lavinia, Norton, Upton Lake is the one in Salt Point, on Main Street there. And there's Pine Lake Grange, Stanford Grange, Dolen is down in Oakland Junction. And there's Pawnee, Pleasant Valley, Green Plains is on Dr. Pink's Road, 255 in Greenwood. Several Corners is in Hyde Park. Old Grove Grange is on St. Nicholas Road in Washington. Old Hill Grange is on Howell Road in Three Corners. Unionville Grange, Rhinebeck Grange, Mount Hope is on Mighty Corners Road in Waterford. Then we had Red Hook, Rock City is on Route 199 in Red Hook, and then Stone Church is in Dolen. When I was going to mention that when we started to disband, I wrote to the state master what we were planning on doing, and he wrote me back and said, think again about selling your building. Once the Grange sells its building, the Grange will soon disappear. And as the years go on, I find that it's happening. The year that we disbanded, the year that we gave up the Grange, 2 other Granges folded up also. I heard last week that a meeting will be the next one to go.
Wasn't Dallas still have a Grange?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We get 83 members.
But where do we meet?
And we have our own building.
Oh, because there's always fuzz about the Grange Hall that they're trying to tear down.
No, that's the Masonic Hall. We're still quite active.
Helen, excuse me, where's the last one you said?
Stone Church.
Oh, in Dover.
They don't have their own building either. They meet in the Masonic Hall and you go down off the hill.
Just past the tree barrels.
Okay.
Another interesting item I found was that in 1922, they created a schedule of what to serve for refreshments. I'm just going to read it to you. Plain chowder, baked beans and brown bread, oyster stew, ginger cake with whipped cream, hot chocolate, and sandwiches, and so forth and so on. Anyway, at the end of the this Wednesday, they had recipes that they could use, which would be sufficient to feed 50 people. One recipe which I found interesting was making a coffee. Now listen to this. You put 4 cups of coffee in a cheesecloth bag and tie so as to leave plenty of room for the coffee to swell. Put the coffee, crushed eggshells, or a couple of whole eggs into 10 quarts of boiling water in a coffee cooker. Boil until desired strength, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and allow to settle in strength. Have anybody make coffee like that? Another one was the hot dog. You wipe the hot dog, you cover it with boiling water, and you cook slowly until they rise to the surface of the water. Then you drain it and serve it with mustard and finger rolls. Washington Grange members were loyal members. They were willing and hard workers, always ready to benefit their Grange or the community. A.S. Coffin again served as master for 11 years and was always looking for new members. Sid Benham and Robert Fish, between the two of them, served 30 years as treasurer of Washington Grange. There was a little dropout of the older members. A lot of them were still members when they passed away, having received their 25, 50, and 60 year certificates. And next month, my brother Henry and I, his hands. We'll be getting our 50-year membership in the Grange. Why have we stayed in the Grange so long? We found, among other things, friendship. No matter what Grange you attend, you are always made welcome. Like the saying goes, you never heard a stranger's voice. Also in time of need, you can depend on a stranger to be at your side, or on the phone, offering some help. For example, in 1987, when my 2-year-old grandson, Daniel, was diagnosed with leukemia and in need of a bone marrow transplant, it was Sandra Grange who set up a Danny Russel Trust Fund at the Sissy Bank in Stanford to received contributions to help pay for the enormous medical expenses which was forthcoming. Many of Daniel's treatments were considered experimental and not covered by their health insurance. The benefits to raise money for the trust fund was held both in Millbrook and in Stanford. The trust fund received contributions of around $22,000 plus another $20,000 which was donated by an anonymous family here in Millbrook. In 1966, due to the loss of membership and the cost of the upkeep of the building, the members voted to sell the building. We received two bids, one from the Millbrook Development Corporation for $14,000 and the other from Bob Lundert for $5,500. The Granges was also considering the proposal to retain the ownership of the land and apply for federal funds to construct a senior citizen dwelling, but that plan fell through. In 1967, the building was sold to the local government, and they received and turned it down. The meetings were then held in the Masonic Hall on Front Street, so the Masons sold their building in 1980. Due to the decline in membership and the lack of public participation and interest, the members voted to disband and join Pleasant Valley Grange. In 1979, we honored Wayne Tompkins, a member of the Millbrook Rescue Club, our Community Service Award, just a few people from Millbrook attended. The members decided that the community isn't going to support its white weekly club. And in April 1980, we started proceeding to disband. At that time, we had 50 members with an average attendance of 5 to 10 people. June 30th, 1981, I, the master, were mixed emotions held our last meeting. At that time, we had 30 members with only 9 active members. Today, we only have 9 Washington Grange members left, and my husband Walt and I, the only active ones. Walt serves as color bearer for Pleasant Valley and also color bearer for the Dutchess County Promoter Grange. I am chaplain of Pleasant Valley Grange and I'm financial secretary of the Dutchess County Promoter. I also have served as master of Pleasant Valley Grange for several years. Our Community Citizen Award is still being given out to the Millbrook residents for their involvement in the community, in our community here. In 1983, we honored Reverend Thorne. In 1986, we honored Bill Hasbrook. In 1989, we honored John Kading. And in 1993, we honored Dolen Castle. If you know of anyone else who is deserving of this award, let us know. In July of 1981, Washington Grange left a legacy to the Millbrook as follows. We left $1,000 to the Meals on Wheels project in Millbrook. I believe they bought another stove or a new stove on the way. We left $3,000 to our Millbrook churches, $1,000 each to be deposited in their pastoral relief fund. We left $11,000 to the Millbrook Central School to establish a scholarship of $1,000 a year to the student furthering his education in the field of home economics, agriculture, and veterinary science. Helen received the first scholarship. Since then, we have given out 18 scholarships, ranging from $500 to $1,000. We made it 500 if there was 2 or 3 and we thought there were 2 of them that were deserving of it. We gave each 500 rather than give this one 10,000. We still have a balance of $2,000 left in this account. We also gave money to our New York State headquarters for their building plan. Headquarters are located in Portland, New York. With a donation of $5,000, they put a memorial plaque in their lobby in memory of the Washington Grange founders. They also put up a plaque in memory of Grace Briggs, an active 16-year member of Washington Grange, who passed away in 1981. We had our last swing at the expense of the Grange, and with a dinner at the Ship Lanterns Inn across the river. We had 10 active members there, and 10 minutes dinner. The balance of the money we gave to Pleasant Valley Grange. Mindy was our treasurer, and she thinks we gave $10,000. I don't remember how much we gave them, I don't know what we gave them. In closing, I'd like to present to the town of Washington Historical Society this book. It's called Grange and Dutchess County, and it was written by William S. Benson Jr., historian of the Dutchess County Grange, and then he is a resident of Salt Point. There's also, if you'd like to read, there's also a copy of this book in the Municipal Library. Don, would you like to talk?
Helen asked if I could say a few words. Of course, I was a member of Pleasant Valley and Henry, of course, she said you have to be 14 years old to join the Grange. So I think I joined Pleasant Valley Grange in probably 1946. So I've been a member for 16 years. Some of my experiences in Pleasant Valley were very happy. I was master of Pleasant Valley Grange during the war, and I can't take it either 41 or 42. Now my mother was very much against me being master of Grange because it was required of my work. But I had a very dear friend in Pleasant Valley who says, if you remember Bob Smith's auction, his wife was very friendly, and she helped me. Early 20s. So we did have a good grade. And it was mainly agriculture. People in Helen asked me why I joined the Grange. And I think back then people joined the Grange because they were farmers and their parents were members of the Grange. Some of the experience I had, of course, you know my first wife, Mary Lou. We were, she might remember the officers. We were a steward and this lady's assistant steward out of the fifth degree, have been promoted Grange degree team. And we used to go around the county for quite a few years. And we had a whole group, they were all officers. And in one experience, I had a neighbor, and I told this to some people, named Richard Trader, I don't know, you know his son, I used to work for Little Place. But he was an overseer. And we used to march in, that everybody's good, and we would meet the officers, and we stopped at every station, and then we would drop off, and we'd go around the block. And this Richard Trader was overseer, and he said, sure it's true. And he would walk around, and this would be, we were having new members of the Grange, and they would each officer have their skill. And I'd walk up and stop and pick Trader's station, and I swear I knew he wasn't going to make it. He'd get his speech. It was fun. Back then, of course, Jim, I remember moving Bill for many years. Farming was a lot different back then in the 30s and 40s today. But you didn't start your haying back then until the 20th of June. It didn't make any difference what the weather was or what the hay was. That was when, remember that, Jim? So we used to have a community day for our Grange. We pick up one, we couldn't start haying because it wasn't 20th and nothing else to do. So we